a fair amount of back and forth in litigation, got court orders to finally tear it down, and it is finally torn down. So there's going to be a lot of cleanup over there that'll be taking place over the next little bit. But this has been a long time coming. It's been an eyesore in the neighborhood. I know that all the neighbors are very excited by the fact that it's been taken down. So I just wanted people to know that this has been a process we've been going on for quite some time. So that finally saw to some fruition. I also wanted to spend some time in my council report just talking a little bit about Stop and Shop. I know that's first and foremost on most people's mind about what's going on in Highland Park. And earlier last week we put out an FAQ about the process of where we are in Stop and Shop. I won't go into it in a huge amount of detail, but I just did feel like important to hit some of the highlights about where we are with the Stop and Shop. So I also wanted to thank Councilmember Hirsch and Kim Chohan and Terry Hover for their help on putting together that FAQ. I think it was, I hope it's helpful. You can find that on the website. I think that's important. As we know, Stop and Shop is closing. We were informed about this at the end of last year. The bottom line about why Stop and Shop is closing is that the company was not making a sufficient profit. It's a smaller store. Their general business model is for about 60,000 square feet. This is about 25,000 square feet. So it's a different business model that Stop and Shop has decided to move away from. We expect that they have a lease up and through June of next year. We expect it'll probably close closer to March of next year. This year, I'm sorry, this year, yes, this year, my apologies, I was hoping it was next year. We are in 2023 as we speak, so it's coming quickly, and there will almost certainly be a gap in a grocery store in Highland Park, which is a tragedy. It's something that we're working very, very hard on. I do want to point out that the borough does not own Stop and Shop. It does not own any of the properties in the area. That is somewhat of a limiting factor in what the borough is able to do about it. We're working every lever that we can to do it, but we are not owners of this. There is a family, a local family with deep roots in the community that does own it. We have been in significant contact with them on a regular basis about what the options and what they want to do with the property, and those are continuing. A recent development is that they have a broker for shopping the property, which is something that is a good development. I will tell my daughter to call back later, so that's a good thing. So the borough has been working on 2 tracks, and those 2 tracks are things that we've been doing simultaneously to try and make sure that there's a supermarket and a grocery store as fast as possible. So, and we're doing 2 different tracks because we want to be able to provide to the landlords, to the property owners, every possible option and incentive to make sure that a grocery store is what gets built there. And so those 2 tracks, I think, are worth. One is everything we can do to get a new supermarket in the existing facility. As I said, they've had a couple supermarket folks come in and look. It does need repair. It does need fixing. So there hasn't been necessarily any supermarket that has jumped up and said that this is what we want to do. But we are doing things like providing to their broker and providing to them sort of every list that we have of potential supermarkets and types of supermarkets in the area. We have a local resident who came up with a list of every single 25,000 square foot supermarket from Maine to Maryland, and we're hoping that that's additional information. We're working together to try and put together a pitch packet about Highland Park to say why a supermarket is an important to Highland Park, why a supermarket could thrive in Highland Park, and we're working with a number of different folks on those sort of materials to try and do everything we can to encourage and get a new supermarket. At the same time, as soon as we heard about this, we moved on the process of creating an area in need of redevelopment. That's a process that the planning staff goes through. The planning board votes on a process for an area in need of redevelopment. At the end of last year, that was passed by the planning board. It was passed by this board, by the governing body. And that allows us to move to create a redevelopment plan. And that redevelopment plan allows us more flexibility to work with the landlords on a variety of different things. That could include a supermarket, a brand new supermarket up front or moved around, could refurbishing the existing one. It could mean additional other uses for the particular area. But we have the ability to do that as a result of having declared an area in need of redevelopment. And our planning board, I just signed tonight a bill to pay for the planning board or the planning professionals as they're working on a redevelopment plan, which we will work with the landlords that will say, here are the things that we want. First, foremost, 1, 2, and 3, what we want is a supermarket. Everything else that we can give you is a result of having a supermarket. And so the focus that we have in the redevelopment plan, the focus that we have in the plan of filling the track 1 of filling it, track 2 of doing a redevelopment plan, are all focused on having a supermarket. So I know there's a frustration out there. I know that there is a wish that we could say tomorrow there's going to be a supermarket and it's going to be this one. That process is a lot slower than we hoped. It is a process that the borough is working on diligently to make sure that a supermarket is there on both of those tracks. The things that we are discussing and the things that we're talking about for when there is a gap are really focused on making sure that those in our community who need a walking supermarket are served in every possible way that we can. We've been discussing things about regular shuttle service to other supermarkets. We've been discussing things about ways of training and teaching people to use online supermarket shopping. We've talked with Main Street and the Farmers Market about ways of possibly expanding farmers market uses of a particular of the area. Also with Highland Park, the food pantry, and with Highland Park Gives a Hoot, as ways of providing some supplemental in-town grocery services, particularly for those most in need and those who don't have transportation. So this is a process that we're going to be working on over the next year. This is an important process. Every single one of the council members and the mayor, this is our number one priority, to be working on this, to doing everything that we can to work with the landlords, to work with the owners, to work with the development community, to work with supermarkets to make sure that Highland Park gets a supermarket as fast as possible. So I encourage everybody to go to the website, to look at the FAQ. If you have questions, and please send them either to me or to Terry. I know Terry's been getting a lot of emails and phone calls that have been fantastic. A lot of really, really interesting, cool ideas that have been thrown out by different people in the community. Terry's very responsive about that and able to get back. So if you do have additional comments, anything that you would like us to do, any ideas that you have, we're open to all comers because we know how important this is. I thought it was important to get that out there. Terry, I don't know if you wanted to add anything about where we are.
That was really comprehensive. And yes, feel free to email me. I've been responding and copying Matt on those responses. And we share your anxiety and your concern, and we appreciate all the feedback we've been getting.
Okay, so thank you. That's all I have, ma'am. Let me.
Thanks, Matt. And I also received a couple of phone calls over the weekend, so I will be forwarding them on to you as well. Councilmember Kim Chohan?
Yes. And I also want to add to that. Last week, I did pass one of my business clients on to Councilman Hell, who received the folder. He's in the grocery business and received the folder. And I will tell you this one tidbit that, because I spoke to him before about it when I first heard about it and wanted to pitch it to him. And some of the same, I would say, brand supermarkets were in this area. So it was kind of like, nah, I'm not really interested. But he was he was actually intrigued when he saw our medium income. So that caught his eye and came back in my office and said, I'm interested. So that's, I guess, a plus on our side. But I want to talk about the finance part, our reeval, where we are. So the borough did apply for an extension until February 15th, which has been approved. I also want to thank the residents for their cooperation in setting up appointments and welcoming the appraisers in the daytime and also the evening. I do appreciate that as we move forward in this process. And last council meeting, we did appoint our longtime assistant chief financial officer, Nerea, to our temporary CFO. I like to just give a little congratulations to her. It's not often that we get to promote within Highland Park. Usually we have some people, they start their career here and they move on to a bigger municipality for, bigger salaries. So that's really a plus from my area. And also just wanted to let everybody know as well that we are keeping an eye on the market rates as the market is fluctuating. We're in touch with our financial institutions as rates are going high. You see banks giving up to 5%, and that includes us with your municipal funds and the budget as well too. So we're in touch with them, and that interest income is a great, I would say, need, and we rely on that for our budget. So, and that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Canavera.
Thank you. Before I give my report, I just wanted to talk about an incident that I witnessed with our police department. The following officers responded to a domestic violence call: Sergeant Haas, Officer Giles, Officer DaCosta, Sergeant Culver, Detective Pacheco, Detective Palumbo, and Sergeant Soden. The reason so many officers were needed was because the suspect was extremely combative and was screaming, "You will have to take me by force." But thanks to all the training that Ms. Foster and Chief have gotten our officers, they spent over an hour de-escalating the situation. And I'm proud to say that they're using their training well, because the person eventually went with them peacefully, and none of our officers or the suspect were hurt in the incident. So thank you for all the training you're giving our officers. I appreciate that. Now for my report. From the Board of Health. In Middlesex County, New Jersey, and actually in the whole state right now, the level is high for COVID. Wearing masks indoors in public is what is recommended. Stay up to date with COVID vaccines. Get tested if you have symptoms. Additional precautions may be needed for people at high risk. Food insecurity is still high. We have 2 programs that can help in the community. The Community Food Pantry, which is open the 2nd and 4th Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. and from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and the Saturday following the 2nd and 3rd Thursday from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. Donations can be made using their Amazon wish list. One of the things that they're in great need of right now are diapers and sanitary products. Highland Park Gives a Hoot Food Pantry is every Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Donations can be made by mailing a check to the Borough Hall with a memo that is for the Highland Park Gives a Hoot Pantry. The cost of rising food prices are creating a bigger demand for our community, unfortunately. The Mental Health Commission also would like to remind everybody, if you need help, reach out. Our crisis centers in the area are Rutgers Behavioral Health Care Hotline at 855-515-5700. The Raritan Bay Medical Center Hotline at 732-442-3794, or you can always text HOME to 741-741 to reach a crisis counselor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember George, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, just some touch base on some questions we had during the last week or so. During the snap freeze that we had about 10 days ago when the temperatures plummeted, I had some calls and email questions about the whether we were ready. I talked to Superintendent Wazirkowicz. They monitor the weather on a regular basis through the state police, which gives out weather reports that are geared to road repair and emergency services. We immediately implemented the snow removal policy that we put into place last year. The brining tanks were ready, the crews were on standby. Superintendent Wazirkowicz delegated the crews that would have been called in, so we were ready to go within a half an hour. Unfortunately, the storm missed us, and it was just rainy and nasty and drizzly, but we were ready to go. So it was good that we reiterated and reheated and reviewed the snow removal policy from last year, and it was ready to go. We had some questions as to whether the winter weather would allow us to resume pothole repairs. The crews are out on a more limited basis because the weather hasn't really been winter, and it hasn't been spring, and it hasn't been fall, and it hasn't been summer. So we, to a limited ability, we are getting some pothole repairs crews back on the road as of today. With regard to staffing, this is our monthly report that we've iterated over the last couple of months. We have a 16-man working department excluding supervision. We have 128 man-hours available daily. We had one holiday. We had 21 working days with all 16 employees. Out of that, we had 81 work days of time. Most of that was due to vacation time at the very end of the year, and because this is the December report. With regard to sanitation and trash removal, 324 tons. In November, the fee was, for the tipping fees, was $22,600. Year to date, this excludes some of December's figures, $265,398 was spent just on the tipping fees to dispose of our trash. South side was 185 tons. North side was 138 tons. Recycling was 104 tons. Year-to-date disposal on recycling was 38,600. The recycling market streams, unfortunately, are still down, even for cardboard, which is a surprising feed because usually we make money on that, but it's because of economic downturns and some importation and exportation rules. Bulk trash, that topped out. There was no bulk trash in December. The total for the year was $13,300 in tipping fees. We have 13 some work orders requests from residents submitted. 9 were completed, 4 are still pending. 2 of those are from November. We had 19 vehicles serviced in-house. We don't do service out of house anymore. We had 9 public works vehicles, 8 police vehicles, and 2 fire vehicles. And finally, a leaf collection did continue and is sporadically continuing, low on the list because we're trying to get some pothole repair done while the weather is still holding up. But we picked up and recycled 40 tons of leaves. And that's my report for DPW. With regard to the Shade Tree Advisory Committee, was very active in December. We reported on that the grant totaling $150,000 for stewardship grant from the state was approved in 3 parts. 20 trees for planting on the Upper Woodbridge Corridor in the fall of 2023. 40 trees for planting on the borough's areas in the neighborhoods, and 30 trees for individual tree requests. You can find those tree requests online on the borough website. Also, staff is having an active campaign trying to alert people to something that sounds extremely mundane, but next to watering is the most important part for planting all the trees. As we just said, we're going to be planting 90 trees under a grant. Is mulch volcanoes, that's where people pile mulch up against the trees. You need to hollow it out against the trunk, because the single most thing that causes the death of those trees, especially when they're young, is the vermin and the insect infestation and bacterial that comes from the mulch being piled up against the tree. It actually has cost us probably 40 trees in the last 5 or 6 years. So they're working on a campaign, most difficultly, to try and get it to the commercial large rentals that then have their own property managers, that then hire their own contractors, trying to get the word out to them, but they're coming up with a program to do that. Finally, Deep Breath library roof, ongoing project. We are tonight, as item 14J on the consent agenda, we're approving some more roof repairs. They have located the main source of the leaks now at what they call the dog houses, which are visually they're like dormers on your house. But that's where the HVAC lines, the big air conditioning lines from the big huge compressors on the roof, run in to the building itself and then drop down to air condition or heat the building. That payment, since the building is ours and the library itself is separate, we are paying for the repairs. It's about $13,000. The architect who's been working with the library on the repairs, as well as the large interior repairs coming up under the state library program grants, feels that this will be enough of an interim solution, but we are talking about more substantial, larger, long-term resolutions. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hirsch, do you have a report?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Elsie Foster. Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Hirsch. I currently chair the borough's Arts and Recreation Committee. My area has been a little light this first part of the year, so I don't really have much of a report along those lines, but I do represent, I'm a liaison to the Arts Commission, to the Safe Walking and Cycling Committee, to the Historical Commission, and others. And this is a real point of where quality of life and volunteerism really come into play. So thank you, and I see members of the Arts Commission here. Hi, Sonia. I did just want to say, just offer a few remarks about the Martin Luther King Junior Day celebration yesterday at the high school, which was amazing. Thank you so much to the Zone 16 Center and Ashton Burrell and everybody who made this important program happen. I was just blown away by the performances and also by the message. And I think when we think of Martin Luther King Day, we think of kind of a day of service. And that's true, but it's not the only thing that we should be thinking of. And I think that this speaks loudly to a lot of the issues that we're facing right now. I'm a little nervous. I still get butterflies up here, so just so you know. When it comes to things like, the lens through which we look at issues, when it comes to things like Stop and Shop, when it comes to things like redevelopment, when it comes to things like housing diversity, are really important. And we have to remember that Martin Luther King Jr. was a radical, believed in direct nonviolent action, and talking about change that made people that makes people uncomfortable. And I think it's really important that we remember to talk through these issues and through these lenses when we talk about the inequities that might result from not having a grocery store here, or the inequities that might result from not having housing diversity in anything that we build. That's not happening, but it's really important. It's a really important lens through which to look. By day I advocate for affordable housing. That's my job at work. And we, the folks that I work with, the allied organizations that I work with, focus significantly on narrowing New Jersey's racial wealth gap. And that's really important to remember on a state level, because that's where big, impactful action can actually take place, but we need to look very intentionally on the local level how to address those things right here and ideally right now. The racial wealth gap in New Jersey, it's average. It's an average white family has about $300,000 in assets. Is worth about $300,000. The average black family in New Jersey is about $6,000. So that is not only unconscionable and the result of decades and centuries of systemic and institutional racism, but it's also implicit policy decisions that I think we make on on all levels of government, even from the most well-intended people, because this is how things are, and this is how we've thought about these processes and kind of how we move forward. I do think it's really important just to remind everybody, in following Martin Luther King Day, that we remember not just the community service piece. Community service is immensely important. Our volunteers, the work that we do, the work that you do, is incredibly valuable because it allows us to achieve these goals through kind of tactile, tangible, everyday action. So the community service is really important, but that's not the only piece that's important. It's community service with a very, very specific mission. So we have to remember why we don't have a voting rights bill under the last Congress. Why don't we have a voting rights bill under the last Congress? Because people were afraid of change. Why don't we have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act? Because people were afraid of change. You do not need any more data or evidence to act on these issues than empowering people with the right to vote and the unfettered and completely accessible right to vote, or addressing why people should not be afraid when reaching out to public service, for public safety. These are things that we have to just remember through the lens of Martin Luther King Day. It's also important to remember Councilwoman Kim Chohan talked about revaluation. An immensely important process, not just from an administrative and operational standpoint, but revaluation is fair. And I think that's one thing we've kind of been leaving out of this whole discussion, is that revaluation is fair because it is intended to equitably proportion the tax burden across the borough. So folks who, for the most part, I would say, larger facilities that are undervaluated will be paying more of a fair share. This is not a windfall for the borough. It's to make sure that the taxing system is fair. A grocery store providing access to fresh food is fair. Housing diversity and more housing is fair. I know that there's a lot of folks who think that we do need more housing, not just in Highland Park, but across the state. We're about 200,000 affordable units short of what the market dictates in New Jersey based on income. 200,000. So how can we make a dent in that in Highland Park? 50? 75? That's pretty good, but we have to look at how we can contribute to that piece. Rent control is fair. Tenant advocacy and organizing is fair, and providing good community services through the recreation department at affordable prices is fair. But we always have to think intentionally. 2023 is about big things and getting things done. And I think I walked away from the event yesterday knowing that lighting the fire, we need to light the fire that's necessary in order to get these big things done. That's my report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You echoed everything that is on our minds and we've been thinking about, and talk about fairness and equity. Equity is really important because equity gives everyone a seat at the table, not just at the table, but also a voice. So thank you so much for your report. Excellent. This time I'm going to ask Borough Administrator, do you have a report?
Just a couple of reminders, building off of both Councilman Hale and Stephanie and Kim Chohan's comments. With regard to the reval, we are at the final stages, and so if you have not yet participated, if you own property in town and got that letter from professional property appraisers, we'd ask that you please do so as soon as you can. They will make appointments, so if you miss them, all you have to do is call 1-866-957-1388. But we really are at the very end, and hopefully your letters will be going out soon, and you'll see how it all shakes out. So I just want to remind you that we are closing turning the corner, but we do need those last properties, as we want to get as close to 100% inspections as possible. So your participation really is critical, and we have made tremendous progress in a relatively short time. And the only other mention I wanted to make was it was delayed, launching our borough meter replacement program. It was delayed due to unavailability of materials, namely meters and the radios that go on the meters. We now have enough to get going with the installation. So similar to the reval, you'll get a letter from the borough announcing the program, and we're going to ask you to please cooperate to make your basements available so that we can swap out those meters and get everything up to the standard it needs to be. So I'm just giving you a little preview. You'll get a letter, and we'll be promoting it in our usual outlets, probably sometime in early February. But I just wanted to get that on everybody's radar now, because we do rely on in this case, the customers of our system to let us in and let us do the upgrades that need to be done. So, thank you.
Thank you. Borough Attorney's report?
No report, Madam Mayor.
I have a small report compared to everyone else. Police department, our police department is in need of crossing guards. They're always in need of crossing guards. So anyone who knows anyone who may be interested in becoming a crossing guard, please contact our police department. They're also in need of dispatchers and police officers. So those are the three postings. You can reach out to HPPD, go on the website, and they are in need of crossing guard, dispatchers, and police officers. And I just want to piggyback on what Councilmember Hirsch said about the MLK event yesterday. It was awesome. The awardees were just incredible. We had people from the high school that was awarded. We had teachers, we had counselors, we had students that was awarded. And also we had members of our local community from the pizza store in town that, give kids free pizza whenever they're hungry on those super cold days when they go in and they not have enough money to purchase pizza, but they know there's a place where they can go where it's safe and they won't be turned away, and there's someone welcoming to offer them a hot pizza, slice of pizza when they need it. And also, 62 turkeys was donated from the Stop and Shop last year. They're leaving us. It's very unfortunate. But the workers inside the Stop and Shop, they worked tirelessly to make sure that the Zone 6 families had a nice Thanksgiving dinner, a well-prepared Thanksgiving dinner. And those 62 turkeys, along with the trimmings, was certainly appreciated by those families. So again, Zone 6, your MLK celebration yesterday was stellar. We are looking for more. Continue to do what you do and live in the legacy and the dream of Dr. King. That's what that's all about. So thanks again. I also want to thank the staff, our borough staff that showed up yesterday and they gave up their time. Thank you. I also want to thank the school for opening up the building so this event could happen, and it was just beautiful. Thank you all. Thanks everyone for coming out. Earlier this evening, I went to Windows of Understanding, and I want to thank the chair of the Arts Commission, Jan Marion, because he makes sure that every year that Highland Park has a role in the Windows of Understanding. The event started at 4:30, it goes on till about 8 o'clock tonight in New Brunswick. It was just beautiful. It was a packed house. Every year, more and more people show up. Their goal is to stamp out hate by showing public art, not only New Brunswick, but there are 4 towns that participate now. And we started out with the windows over at the Rite Aid with the different artwork that was showing up, and then it just kind of exploded in different parts of town. So Highland Park is on the right track to stamping out hate, to providing safety, security, and health for those people who are in need and those people who participate. So thank you so much to the Arts Commission, and thank you so much for the vision of putting the Windows of Understanding here in town. Just want to touch on something that is on all of our minds. Just now, about maybe a couple of hours ago, I got a text message. I guess it's a state alert, and it's that our levels of COVID is getting very high. Middlesex County has the highest level of COVID. So if you need to be tested, you can please reach out to Middlesex County Department of Health. Their phone number is 732-745-3100. So if you have any questions or you need testing or any information, please reach out. And whenever possible, please wear your mask. Want to touch a little bit on boards and commission. We are in a transition period, as many of you know, and there's a lot of application that came in for boards and commission. Those have not been filled yet. Those will be done next month once we move from our traditions phase that we're in. Also, I have received quite a number of emails, people requesting hybrid meetings. As we go through our transition phase, we will come back and this will be discussed again. So I myself took some time yesterday, my day of service, and I looked up the League of Cities. And I went on their website and I went on Harvard University website because there's someone there from Harvard who is doing the study on hybrid meetings, and she's made some recommendations. Currently, there's only one town in New Jersey that's doing hybrid meeting. We're in conversations with them to see how that works. I'm not saying that we're going to go that route. I'm saying that research is being done to look into it because it's important that we are able to communicate for people who can attend the meetings and those who can't for whatever reason. We would like to make communication open, but it's still being explored. I will be keeping all our colleagues, all of us will be looking at to see how we can discuss and come about putting together some form of hybrid meeting in the future. Should we decide on going that route, we will let you know. Stop and Shop, Terry already discussed it, that she's in discussion with the property owners. And as I said earlier, that I had received 2 phone calls from persons that are interested in the site as well. And, you know, they talked about some kind of mixed use, such as housing up top, and retail, a supermarket on the bottom. So they're talking about mixed use for that area. So we will see. We're all engaged and we're all entrenched in making sure that we don't become a food desert in Highland Park, that we will have a supermarket that's accessible to all. That's my report. And now I'm going to move to public discussion. It is now time for public discussion session. Total time for this allotted is 21 minutes, 3 minutes maximum per speaker. Comments are limited to item on the agenda. If you want to talk about an item that is not listed, please do so at the second comment session later in the meeting. Borough Clerk? Borough Clerk will monitor the time, and when 3 minutes has elapsed, she will give a warning of 30 seconds remaining. There will be a hard stop at 3 minutes to make sure that everyone has time to speak. As a reminder, I may interrupt, warn, terminate a participant's statement if it does not adhere to the 3 minutes provided, or if the statement is disruptive to the disorderly conduct of public meetings, it's repetitive, or not on the topic that is of relevance to the borough governing body. Please announce your name, address for the record, and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ashley Hartwick of South 2nd Avenue. I wanted to speak to the redevelopment plan that appeared on pretty much everyone's agenda this evening. So the first question I have about the redevelopment plan is we heard a lot about housing from Mr. Hirsch, but there hasn't been an explicit statement that there's a desire for housing to be part of this redevelopment plan. So I was just looking for a yes or a no. Is there a priority or a desire that housing be part of this plan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. And it will be high-density housing, just to confirm that? Or is that the desire for high-density housing?
I don't think that, Councilmember Hale?
When you say the redevelopment, are you talking about tracks A, B, C, and D, or are you talking about a potential redevelopment for?
In general.
And anything that's within those lots that were part of the redevelopment study?
Housing is the number one priority in all of them, to try and get as many people on Raritan Avenue, living on Raritan Avenue as possible. So housing is the fundamental part of all of the redevelopment plans.
Great, thank you for confirming that. And I've seen a number of statements from members of the planning committee that it's not desired for there to continue to be parking minimums when there's development, that we should either have a reduction or a removal of parking minimums. Would you say that's the case?
So there's certainly a debate about the value of having parking minimums. The planning board and the governing body doesn't have a hard and fast rule about whether parking minimums are beneficial or not. The literature and the research and the planning community says there may be value to lowering or not having parking minimums. So I think our goal in all of our redevelopment plans is to try and have the best possible housing mix that we can, and to encourage people to not use cars as much as we possibly can.
Okay, so the goal is to encourage people not to use cars, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Highland Park has always wanted to be a walking town, and we certainly would like to continue to be a walking town.
Okay, I'd just like to point out that in terms of access, especially equity, equal access, 50% of the population are women. I'm not sure if you've ever polled the women of Highland Park. The majority of women do not feel comfortable walking or taking public transit after dark, which in the winter is at 4:30 p.m. So I'd encourage for that to be taken into account when one talks about it's better for people to discourage driving. Think about who it's better for and who it's not better for. I would ask for that to be taken into account.
It's an excellent point, and thank you for bringing that up.
As well as disabled individuals, of course, of all genders. I'd like to ask, as far as the parking study, who was hired to carry out the parking study, and were they hired through a competitive bidding process? Or not the parking study, but actually the
30
redevelopment
seconds.
study, I'm sorry. The redevelopment study. Who was hired to carry it out?
Which redevelop? Again, the redevelopment plan, the A, B, C, and D. That plan, is that the?
And any of the plans for what may happen to these lots, any of them.
So those are our professional staff, and Terry, maybe you can weigh in on that a little bit. I'm not sure exactly I understand the question.
We work with the borough planner, who's a consulting firm, LRK, specifically Jim Constantine and Chris Cosenza, and they work with us to develop those plans.
And was there a special cost paid to them to develop these plans? Additional cost to them?
3 minutes.
Payment to them?
We work on a project-by-project basis, so yes.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing none? Oh.
Good evening. My name is Elliot Friedenreich. I'm living at 54 Woodbridge Avenue. I've only been here in the community for about a year now. But I'm sorry I came late to this evening's meeting, so I didn't hear what you said about many items. So I just want to know, I'm one of those who goes to the senior center at least 3 days a week. And my understanding is that the roof of the senior center needed to be repaired because it leaks. Do you know if that has been accomplished?
Terry?
No, I have a proposal from the same architect, Councilman George mentioned it, that was working with us at the library, to do similar plans for the community center roof.
I see. So is there any idea how long that's going to take, when it might happen?
Working through the timeline, funding, and so forth, but hopefully this year.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Sonia. I'm on River Road, and I wasn't initially going to speak, but Ashley kind of brought up a couple points that I felt I should speak on. So for the parking minimums, kind of being rid, I live right next to a recent development, the Frederick, pretty big, I think 30-something units, if I'm not mistaken, and they have very few parking spots, and they didn't actually, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't get parking spots with their units, so they had to pay extra to rent them. And the parking on my street, since that building has gone up and people have started moving in, has been just terrible. That's been, the experience in my neighborhood. And I would want to suggest, and I know, again, the Frederick was built with, and this is what we were told by the developers when they were kind of pitching it, that it was going to be people like young professionals who commute into the city. They can walk to the train. It's half a mile away. They're not going to have cars. They're not going to need cars. You'll still be able to park on your street. And that really hasn't been what I've observed as been the case. So I would suggest, I don't know if this is possible, but polling maybe some of the newer buildings and seeing what percentage of people have vehicles. And like in a 2-bedroom, how many vehicles are there? In a 1-bedroom, how many vehicles? And what percentage of people are paying an extra $200 a month, to use the lot in their building? Just because I do feel like the the town did open up a lot of extra parking when that building went up. That whole one-way behind it is open. You didn't used to be able to park there. They put like 3 additional spots on River Road, and they have their whole lot, and it's still a significant difference for members in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to make that suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Elsie, may I?
Yes.
I just want to clarify one point, and hi, Sonia, I think we've traded emails, so it's nice to see you. We contemplated decoupling the parking as a condition of the redeveloper agreement from the rents. That isn't the case. They get parking spaces with their, I've heard that from a couple of the residents, because that was something that was being considered, so I just wanted to clarify that point. But your points are well taken.
Any additional comments this time? Seeing that there's none, now we're going to move on to the consent agenda resolution. So consent agenda 14A through to 14P.
So move.
Second.
Motion to adopt.
We need a roll call.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Canavera?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch?
Yes, and I will just ask if the borough administrator might, because it's very cool, can describe the shared services agreement 14F when we're done voting. But yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes, in the shared service agreement, it's for our IT with Freehold Township. We have went into a shared service agreement with them instead of bringing on a full-time employee, have to give benefits or so too. So hopefully this, I believe is for a year.
Yes.
That we're going into with them. So shared services agreements for a small town like ours are always a plus. So yes.
Resolution for separate reading, 15A, resolution to amend 2003 municipal temporary budget. Motion to adopt or reject?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Canavera?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
14B, resolution to approve transfer budget. Motion to adopt or reject?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Canavera?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Now we move to appointment. Board of Health, Laura Kornfeld, Jesse Carson, and Jen Voorhees, Board of Education. Human Relation, Annie Gowen, Board of Ed. Public Information, Mark Krieger, Board of Ed. A motion to confirm?
Move to confirm.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Canavera?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch?
Yes, and I just want to thank, so we have some really amazing volunteers, but I do want to single out, because I meant to last time, Jen Voorhees, who's the Board of Health, who's the Board of Ed liaison to the Board of Health. Jen was recently elected to to the Board of Ed, and we're really thrilled that she is liaison to this committee. So yes.
Councilwoman Kim Cho-Han.
Yes.
Now we go to our second public discussion. 3 minutes per speaker, and you can speak on any subject, any item, and we will conclude at 9 p.m. prior to our work session.
Hi everyone, my name is Shannon Rendeck. Like Councilmember Hirsch, I do get a little bit of stage fright here. So, I am a resident of Highland Park. I live in off of Cedar Lane. So I'm here today because I am interested in obtaining a status update from the council on the cannabis ordinance that allows dispensaries to operate in our town. Now, from my understanding, in 2021, there were ordinances passed to permit retail, delivery, medical businesses, and then it sounds like in May of last year, there were RFPs that were sent out for those who were interested in operating. Now, from where I stand, I haven't heard of any updates since that RFP was sent out back in May. So I was trying to understand what your timeline is, any ETAs, any times that you think businesses might be able to operate. Obviously, with the number of businesses that are closing in town, it is a bit concerning as a citizen. And I do feel like there is an opportunity here that we can look to benefit from the taxation of this product as well. So these are types of businesses that fuel the growth of the community and our town. But then also, from what I've heard, there was overwhelming majority of the town's interest for this as well. So just following up on that, any information you guys have is appreciated.
Terry, can you provide any input or?
I was thinking Ed.
Ed should do it.
Ed. Borough Attorney, I'm sorry.
Sure. Well, you just outlined the cannabis process here in the borough, how it began. The invitation was extended under the cannabis law for municipalities to adopt ordinances to permit the uses that you just outlined. After this community did so, they were sued. There was a lawsuit filed against the borough. And the applications were still solicited and still came in. But in our discussions with the governing body, we felt that it would have been unfair to move ahead and begin to award local licenses if the underlying ordinance was going to be attacked and defeated. Why? Because those who come into town have to invest a great deal in order to go forward with their license. Most particularly, they have to find a location. So we didn't want people in a position to find a location, make a commitment either to buy or a long-term lease, and then if the ordinance was struck down, they wouldn't have the ability to get a temporary license or a local license from us. The good news is, on November 18th of last year, the Superior Court judge who handled this matter issued a lengthy opinion and upheld every element of the ordinance and upheld the ability of the council to move forward with awarding the local licenses. So once that green light was given, our advice to the council was that it would be prudent to move forward. There was no delay in doing it any longer. We expected that decision, which the borough won, would be appealed. It was appealed, and it is now in the appellate division of our courts. But there's no stay or there's no prohibition to moving forward. So I know that the borough administrator and the subcommittee that's working on making a recommendation to the governing body has met and is preparing recommendations to the governing body, which the governing body will entertain shortly, and we can move forward. But the hiccup was that litigation, and we really felt we didn't want to mislead people, or we didn't want to have people committed to a great deal of investment money in the town unless it was going to work. And we fully believe it's going to work. We believe we'll prevail at the appellate division. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to the Supreme Court. We believe we'll prevail there as well. But that's kind of the quick history of why it didn't go quicker, and it was as a result of the litigation.
Okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, the next steps are can you put it in layman's terms for us common folk? What exactly those next? Okay. Yeah.
I'll volunteer for layman's Ed if you want. So having gotten through all that legal, the ordinance charges me with developing the process and bringing back a recommendation, basically looking at all the applications side by side, scoring them, and ranking them. So we're poised to do that very shortly. And after which then the governing body has to take an action in the form of a resolution of local support, which these applicants need in order to pursue their state license. So be advised, even though we may say they meet our criteria, there still may be other hurdles that they have to mount at the state level, and some may or may not make it, in which case we'll have to figure out what we do with those available licenses. But at least our piece of this would end as soon as the governing body takes an action in support of these local applicants. And then we'll just have to see how they succeed at the state level.
Okay. Thank you all for your support.
Can I add one? Can I just add a quick thought to that?
Councilmember
Mayor. I do just want to point out that I think I speak for a lot of us saying how exciting it is to introduce this new industry to Highland Park, and other going along the lines of fairness. Let's talk about fairness here. Let's talk about a substance that was used to criminalize and imprison people for centuries. While we can scoff at that idea, here is an industry that is new and that addresses a centuries-old injustice. That is really important to remember. What is fair? That's really important to remember. And change is hard. It is. But what I do want to say, though, is that when it comes to the caliber of applicants, and when it comes to the folks that do want to open businesses here in town, these are exceptionally organized, professional, and offer a highly well-run business. This is a highly regulated industry that they're entering into, so they really do have to cross every T and dot every I before they come to town. So that's going to be really important. And the fact that any retailer thinks that Highland Park is an attractive place to contribute to the local economy, well, then I support that. And again, I've said before, if they shuffle their walks, if they sweep their sidewalks, if they participate in the local farmers market and our street fairs, and they provide good community service, then we need to support them. And I think that the caliber of applicants shows that they will. But thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any additional comments?
Thought I'd have longer. Eric Lipton. I live on South Adelaide. I've been a resident here for about 17 years, 16 and a half, 17 years. You know what's really fair? Hybrid meetings. I appreciate that there are some reservations. There should not be any. We've had, it's been almost 3 years since COVID hit us. I think the fact that it has not been already figured out and implemented, and we could hold the banner of being the first town with hybrid meetings. Look, I had to pay $10 for an Uber here. It's too far to walk at night. That shouldn't be necessary to do what Matt Hirsch said, which is participate in our democracy at an important time where I think the very nature of our town is a question whether it's about redevelopment, whether it's about grocery, whether we are still a walkable town that is accessible to all. And I really want to invite you guys to go on one of the shuttle rides. I am offered to go to grocery stores. There's a lot more to shuttle services than just saying shuttle services, which I'm sure you're going to find out. Joking aside, just do a hybrid meeting. Come on. You know the phrase, it could have been an email. It could have been home. People who I wouldn't be out $16 or $20 to come here. So let's like do that like now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional comments? Seeing that there's none, would council members, we like to go for a 5-minute recess? If not, we can move into our next session.
I think we can move ahead. I don't know.
We move ahead? Okay. So the next thing on our agenda is executive session, and that's all to say.
We need a motion to adopt or reject Resolution 2336.
Oh, motion to adopt or reject Resolution 23 through 36, authorizing executive session, Botian versus Highland Park.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Canavera?
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster?
Yes.
Councilman George?
Yes.
Councilman Hale?
Yes.
Councilmember Hirsch?
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn into executive session.
Yes.
Second.
Voice. Okay. Voice.
All in favor?
All in